airline security expert, and he is also the creator of the website airsafe.com. Todd, you just heard Jim's report about screening of passengers before they even get to the airport. How detailed are these pre-screenings?
Well, this is the real question on the table right now, because up to now there has been certain kinds of screening for passenger records, making sure they match the name with the official ID. But what's being proposed goes well beyond that, because what the TSA and the rest of the U.S. government is doing is taking a variety of databases, some of them public, some of them private, some of them from the security agencies, and somehow or another, through a method that they're not going to reveal to the public, is going to see whether or not the sum total of this information means that this person is risky. And therein lies a danger. As we've seen from recent revelations about the NSA, for instance, there may be some cases where especially the intelligence community is gathering information not because there's any real threat or a suspected threat, but because it's technically possible to do so, and they've legally found a way to make it happen.
So it's a big brother quality, you would say?
Absolutely. The level of scrutiny that's possible because of our interconnected, data-driven world, the level of scrutiny that's possible for an average citizen is far greater than it ever was during the height of the Cold War. There is a level of detail that, if you take your online behavior, your telephone records, your financial records, put them in a convenient place, there's a level of detail that simply didn't exist 20 or 30 years ago. And therein lies a potential hazard to personal privacy and personal freedom.
Todd, one of the programs that the TSA encourages people to sign up for, especially if they fly a lot internationally, is something called the Global Entry Program. And we want folks to take a look at this graphic. It costs $100 for a 5-year pass. It gets the traveler through customs faster, includes a program called PreCheck that gets you sped through airport security. But in order to be approved for this program, the passenger has to undergo a background check and answer other questions. So, Todd, by opting into this program, how much information is the traveler willingly giving up?
Well, the traveler is willingly giving up quite a bit of information in some respects, sort of like the kind of information given up when one is going for a security clearance. That is, they want to go into far more detail to make sure that you don't have anything in your background that's criminal or suspected to be a terrorist and what have you. And although it may be convenient, it's at a cost that's not the kind of thing we've seen before in the United States. That is, it's a given that you're able to freely travel about the United States without much interference from state or federal authorities. Yet when it comes to aviation, it's being done not because there's any real threat, but because it's, in essence, because they're able to do so. And they're playing it safe in the sense of they would really, really like to, the TSA and the rest of the government would really like to make sure that you absolutely have no risk when you fly. But there's a balancing act. And I think this is one of those examples where one has to really go beyond what's normally done in the rest of society in order to have the freedom that's taken for granted elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Todd, stay put for just a second. I want to bring Jim Spellman back into the mix here. Jim, for some people watching, it's been quite a while since they've flown through an American airport, and these airports are now using some technology that's widely used across Europe, so-called full-body scanners. Listen to how the TSA describes this technology.
Should the technology detect an anomaly, the other icon that you'll see will be a generic outline of a human body, not an image. This technology gets rid of the images associated with the advanced imaging technology scanners.
Now, this is actually a different version of a body scan than what was used here in the United States just a few years ago. How has all of this evolved?
Yeah, well, back in 2007, when they rolled out that particular technology, when you went through the scanners, you saw this very, very graphic image. I actually got a chance to go through it myself when they rolled this out at Baltimore Washington International Airport. It was not a pretty picture, Mike. It was very, very graphic. This upset a lot of people. Privacy advocates actually sued. Courts upheld them. And earlier this year, the TSA was forced to change the software element of these scanners. Same scan, you get this more cartoonish kind of image. So when you heard Todd talk about this sort of balancing act, this push-pull, it's been in play around many programs with the TSA since its creation after September 11th. I'm sure it will continue to be that kind of balancing act, push-pull for years to come.
And speaking about technology being used around the world, Todd, how does the United States compare in terms of looking up personal information or using these types of scans or pat-downs?
Well, when it comes to some of the physical security that happens at the airport, there's a very great difference between the United States and elsewhere. Personally, when I travel overseas, I don't get the level of scrutiny I get with the U.S. For example, in the recent years, I've flown from Mexico, Australia, and other places. There were no full-body scanners, nor were there even a requirement to take off my shoes before going through the screening system. And these are flights which, on the surface, would seem to be the kind of very attractive flights for potential terrorists. A U.S. airline, wide-bodied aircraft on an overseas flight coming into the U.S. Yet the kind of scrutiny I got overseas coming into the U.S. was less than what I would get for a domestic flight between two small cities.
All right, Todd, thanks. And the last question here is for Jim Spellman. What do we know about the people who are selected for this enhanced screening process before they board a flight?
It will not surprise me, Mike, you can't go on the TSA's website and take a look at this list of people that are on this no-fly list. It's very closely guarded. People that are on it often have links to terrorism or links to people that have links to terrorism. A lot of people claim that they're on it because they have names that are similar to people on that list. That's one of the concerns people have about this new program, that they'll just be scooping up people with similar sounding names, religious sounding names that sound like they're from a certain religious, Muslim names, things like that. But to get off the list, it's actually possible, but very difficult. You have to go and make a very elaborate case to the FBI, then through the TSA to get off the list. People say that it's like going into a rabbit hole. You can go into that process, very hard to get out, Mike.
Yeah, I remember that former Senator Ted Kennedy actually ended up on that list. Took him forever to get off it. Todd Curtis, Jim Spellman, thank you both for giving us this insight tonight.